At my baby shower, my husband brought 2 women and 4 children and announced to the guests, "This is my real family. I hid them for too long." My friends were horrified, but I smiled, gave him a box and said, "I know, this is for you." He opened it and his hands began to tremble. I had spent 3 full weeks planning this baby shower. Every single detail had to be perfect. I remember standing in the party supply store, running my fingers over different shades of blue ribbons, trying to decide which one matched the exact vision in my head. Pastel blue, soft, like a cloudy sky. Not too bright, not too dark, just right. The cupcakes took 2 days to arrange. My best friend Sarah and I spent an entire Saturday afternoon at the bakery, taste testing different flavors. Vanilla with buttercream, lemon with raspberry filling, chocolate with salted caramel. We finally settled on a mix of all 3, arranged on white tiered stands that I had rented from a boutique downtown. The white balloons were another ordeal entirely. I wanted them to float at just the right height, clustered near the ceiling, but not so high that they looked lost. I stood on a chair for an hour, adjusting each one until my back ached. Sarah had helped me send out invitations to 30 people. We hand-wrote each one, my cursive letters spelling out the names of family members, friends from college, coworkers from the office where I used to work before I decided to focus on preparing for the baby. Everyone I cared about received an invitation. My Aunt Patricia, my cousin Melissa, my old roommate from freshman year, Jennifer, my coworker turned friend, Rachel, every person who had been part of my life, who had celebrated with me when I got married, who had congratulated me when I announced I was pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant. My belly was so round and heavy that I had trouble bending over to tie my shoes. The baby kicked constantly, little flutters that sometimes felt like hiccups, other times like tiny fists punching from the inside. I would place my hand on my stomach and feel the movement, tears forming in my eyes at the miracle of it all. This was my baby, mine and Marcus's, the beginning of our family. I wore a cream-colored dress that day. It was soft, flowing fabric that draped over my belly without clinging too tight. Sarah had helped me pick it out from a maternity boutique in the mall. We had spent 2 hours trying on different dresses. And when I put this one on, Sarah had gasped. "That's the one," she said. "You look absolutely radiant." And I did feel beautiful that day. My hair was freshly washed and curled, falling in soft waves over my shoulders. I had put on a light layer of makeup, just enough to highlight my eyes and add a bit of color to my cheeks. People kept coming up to me throughout the party, touching my arm, hugging me carefully around my belly, telling me I was glowing. "Pregnancy looks amazing on you," my Aunt Patricia said, squeezing my hand. "You're going to be such a wonderful mother," Rachel added, her eyes shining with emotion. I smiled and thanked them, but inside, my stomach was churning with something that wasn't morning sickness. Marcus, my husband, had been acting strange for weeks. Months, actually, if I was being honest with myself. He was distant, always on his phone, the screen tilted away from me whenever I walked into the room. He would be typing furiously, then suddenly lock the screen when he noticed me looking. When I asked him what he was doing, he would smile that charming smile of his and say, "Just work stuff, babe, nothing interesting." But it wasn't just the phone. He was leaving the house at odd hours. Early in the morning, before I woke up. Late at night, after I had gone to bed. When I asked where he was going, he had a ready answer every time. Meeting with the client, gym session, grabbing drinks with the guys from work, running errands. Every excuse was plausible, reasonable, but something in my gut told me it wasn't right. I would wake up at 2 a.m. and reach across the bed, finding his side cold and empty. I would check his location on his phone, but it was always turned off. I would call him, and he wouldn't answer until hours later, apologizing profusely, saying his phone had been on silent. When I asked him about it, he would kiss my forehead, place his hand on my belly and say, "Just work stress, baby. Nothing for you to worry about. I'm just trying to make sure we have everything we need before the baby comes. You know how important that is to me." And I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. because the alternative was too painful to consider. The alternative meant that the man I had married, the man whose baby I was carrying, was lying to me. And I couldn't accept that, not yet. But I did worry. I worried constantly. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep because the baby was pressing against my ribs, I would lie awake and replay conversations in my head. The time he came home with perfume on his shirt collar and said it must have been from hugging a coworker at a farewell party. The time I found a receipt for dinner at an expensive restaurant we had never been to together, and he said it was a business dinner with a potential client. The time his phone rang at midnight, and when I asked who it was, he said it was a wrong number. Each explanation made sense on its own, but together they formed a pattern I didn't want to see. The party was in full swing when the front door opened. I was standing near the gift table, chatting with my Aunt Patricia about baby names. She was suggesting traditional family names that had been passed down for generations. I was only half listening, nodding politely while my mind wandered to the color scheme of the nursery and whether we had ordered enough diapers. Then I heard it, the murmur that rippled through the room like a wave. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the door. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped a glass, and I heard it shatter against the hardwood floor, the tinkling sound cutting through the sudden silence. I turned slowly, already knowing, somehow, that whatever was happening was going to change everything. Marcus walked in, but he wasn't alone. Behind him were two women. The first one was tall, with sharp cheekbones and piercing blue eyes that scanned the room with cold precision. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain t-shirt, practical and no nonsense. She was holding the hand of a little boy, maybe 5 years old, with dark hair and Marcus's eyes. Next to her stood a girl, maybe 8, also with Marcus's features, clutching a stuffed animal to her chest. The second woman was shorter, with dark curly hair that fell around her face in a messy halo. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her green eyes. She had a baby strapped to her chest in a carrier, the infant's tiny fist visible against the fabric. She was holding the hands of 2 other children, a boy and a girl, both under 10, both looking confused and uncomfortable. They all had Marcus's nose, Marcus's chin, Marcus's expressions. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. I felt it, the sudden absence of its beat, the way my chest went hollow and cold. Then it started again, pounding so hard I thought everyone in the room must be able to hear it. Marcus walked to the center of the living room. He didn't look at me. He looked around at everyone else, his face eerily calm, almost proud. He straightened his shoulders, lifted his chin, and raised his voice. "I need to say something," he announced. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I felt my aunt's hand on my arm, her fingers tightening, steadying me. I felt Sarah move to my other side, her presence warm and solid. Marcus gestured to the 2 women and the 4 children standing behind him. "This is my real family. I've been hiding them for too long. I can't keep living a lie." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward, my hand flying to my belly, protecting the baby from something I couldn't name. Gas filled the room. Someone cried out. I heard my cousin Melissa shout, "What the hell?" People started moving, murmuring, their voices rising in a cacophony of shock and confusion. I saw my Aunt Patricia's face go white. I saw Rachel cover her mouth with her hands. I saw my college friend Jennifer stare at Marcus with pure disbelief. I stood there, frozen, my hand still on my belly. I felt the baby kick, as if sensing my distress. A tiny foot pressed against my palm from the inside, and I thought, absurdly, that my baby was trying to comfort me. Sarah rushed to my side. "What the hell is he doing?" she hissed, her voice low and furious. Her hand was on my shoulder, squeezing tight. "Are you okay? Do you need to sit down?" But I didn't answer. Because I already knew. I had known for weeks, maybe months. Some part of me had always known. This wasn't a surprise, this was a confirmation. Marcus looked at me, and for the first time since he walked in, our eyes met. His expression was smug, triumphant. He thought he had won. He thought he had humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. He thought I would crumble, break down, cry, beg, plead, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It wasn't dramatic. It was small, controlled, and cold. I felt it spread across my face, felt the corners of my mouth lift, felt the expression settle into something calm and knowing. I walked slowly toward him. Each step was deliberate, measured. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the silent room. People moved out of my way, creating a path. I kept my eyes locked on Marcus. I saw the first flicker of uncertainty cross his face. His smug expression faltered. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. When I reached him, I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man I had married, the man I had loved, the man whose baby I was carrying. I memorized his face in that moment, knowing that after this, everything would be different. Then I turned to the gift table beside me. There, sitting exactly where I had placed it earlier that morning, was a small gift box. It was wrapped in silver paper, shimmering under the light. A white satin ribbon was tied around it in a perfect bow. I had wrapped it myself, my hands steady as I folded the corners with precision. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It was heavier than it looked, heavier with meaning, heavier with truth. I held it out to him. "I know," I said softly. My voice was calm, steady. "This is for you." Marcus frowned, confused. The blonde woman next to him narrowed her eyes, her grip tightening on the little boy's hand. The dark-haired woman shifted the baby in her carrier, her expression wary. Marcus took the box from me. His fingers fumbled with the ribbon, pulling at it clumsily. The bow came undone, the white satin falling away. He tore at the silver paper, ripping it off in jagged pieces. He opened the lid. Inside were stacks of printed documents, photos, bank statements, text messages, screenshots, emails, legal papers. Everything meticulously organized, chronologically arranged, labeled with tabs and sticky notes. His face went white. All the color drained from his skin. His hands started shaking. The box trembled in his grip. What is this?" he stammered, his voice cracking. I took a step closer to him, so close I could see the sweat forming on his forehead. I kept my voice low, calm, controlled. "Evidence," I said. "Photos of you with them, with her." I pointed to the blonde woman, and her. I pointed to the dark-haired woman. "Bank statements showing you've been funneling our money into separate accounts. Withdrawals, transfers, hidden expenses, text messages where you planned this little stunt today, emails where you coordinated your lies, phone records, credit card statements, everything." I paused, letting each word sink in, letting him understand the magnitude of what I had done. "And divorce papers, already signed by me, notarized, filed with the court. All you have to do is sign your part. Your lawyer has already received a copy." The room erupted. It was like a dam breaking. People started talking all at once, their voices overlapping, rising in volume. Some were angry, shouting at Marcus. Some were shocked, asking questions. Some were confused, trying to piece together what was happening. "You knew? How long has this been going on? Who are these women? Those are his children? How could you do this?" Marcus's hands were shaking violently now. He dropped the box. It hit the floor with a thud, and papers scattered everywhere, sliding across the hardwood like autumn leaves. Photos of him with the blonde woman at a restaurant. Photos of him with the dark-haired woman at a park. Bank statements highlighted in yellow. Text messages printed in black and white. His words damning him with every line. You knew?" he whispered, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "For months," I said, my voice still calm, still controlled. "I hired a private investigator the moment I suspected something. 3 months ago, when you said you were going to a work conference in Atlanta, but I saw a charge on our credit card from a hotel in Miami. That was the first real proof. After that, everything unraveled. I gestured to the papers on the floor. I know everything, Marcus. About your lies, about your other families, about the money you stole from me, from my account, from our joint account, from the savings we were supposed to use for our baby. I turned to the blonde woman. She was staring at me, her face pale, her blue eyes wide with shock and confusion. You're Lisa, right? I said gently. She nodded slowly, unable to speak. He married you 12 years ago, I continued. Legally, in a courthouse in Oregon. You have 2 kids with him. I pointed to the boy she was holding and the girl standing beside her. Tyler and Emma, right? Lisa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I turned to the dark-haired woman. And you're Jennifer. He's been living with you for 8 years. Common law marriage. You have 2 kids with him too, plus the baby. I gestured to the children clinging to her. Mason, Olivia, and little Jake. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at Marcus. Both women stared at me, then at each other, then at Marcus. The realization was dawning on their faces, the truth settling in like a weight. Wait, Lisa said slowly, her voice shaking. Married? He told me he was divorced. He said his ex-wife lived in another state, and they didn't talk anymore. He told me the same thing, Jennifer said, her voice breaking. He said he had been married before, but it ended badly. He said you were just a coworker, someone he had to work with occasionally but didn't care about. I looked at Marcus. He was staring at the floor, his face red, his jaw clenched. You told all of us different stories, didn't you? I said. My voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now, a sharpness. You told Lisa I was just a girlfriend, someone you were casually seeing. You told Jennifer I was a coworker, someone unimportant. And you told me they didn't exist, that I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid because of the pregnancy hormones. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. He looked like a fish gasping for air. I turned to face the crowd. Everyone was watching, silent, waiting. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, I said, raising my voice so everyone could hear. But I wanted everyone to see who he really is, not the man he pretends to be. Not the charming husband, the devoted father-to-be, the successful professional, the real Marcus, a liar, a cheat, a coward. Sarah started clapping, slowly at first, then louder. One person joined her, then another, then another. Soon, half the room was clapping, some slowly, some enthusiastically, some with tears in their eyes. Marcus looked around, panicking. His face went from white to red to purple. He clenched his fists at his sides. This is insane, he shouted. She's pregnant. She's emotional. She doesn't know what she's saying. Pregnancy hormones make women crazy. I know exactly what I'm saying, I said coldly, my voice cutting through his protest like a knife. And I have proof of everything. The investigator documented it all, every lie, every secret, every betrayal. You're done, Marcus. It's over. Lisa grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his sleeve. Is this true? Do you have other families? He tried to pull away, but Jennifer grabbed his other arm, her baby bouncing in the carrier. Answer her. Tell us the truth. I can explain, Marcus started. There's nothing to explain, I interrupted. You're a con artist. You manipulated all of us. You used us for money, for stability, for whatever sick game you were playing. But it's over now. The truth is out. Marcus looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Fear. Real? Genuine fear. Then it morphed into rage. His face contorted, his eyes narrowed, his lips pulled back. You think you're so smart? He hissed. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've just done. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I don't think, I said calmly. I know. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. He lunged toward me, his hands reaching out, his face twisted with fury. But before he could get close, 2 of my male cousins stepped in, blocking him. My cousin David grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it behind his back. My cousin Ryan stood in front of me, his body a wall between me and my husband. "Get out," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "And take your lies with you." Security guards appeared then. Sarah had hired them as a precaution, bless her. She had insisted, saying, "Just in case things go wrong." I had laughed at the time, thinking she was being paranoid. Now, I silently thanked her. The security guards escorted Marcus out of the house. He was shouting the entire way, hurling insults and threats, but his words were muffled by the closing door. Lisa and Jennifer stood there, still in shock, their children clinging to them. The kids looked confused and scared, and my heart broke for them. They were innocent in all of this. They didn't ask for any of this. I walked over to them slowly. Up close, I could see the exhaustion on their faces, the lines of stress around their eyes. They had been living in the same lie I had been living in. We were all victims of the same man. "I'm sorry you were dragged into this," I said gently. "If you want to talk, I'm here. I know this must be incredibly confusing and painful, but we're all in this together now." Lisa looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea. "He told me you were just some woman from work, someone he had to collaborate with on projects. I thought we were his only family." "He told me the same thing about you," I said softly. "He's very good at lying. Very convincing." Jennifer was crying too, rocking the baby in her arms. The infant had started fussing, sensing the tension. "What are we supposed to do now? I don't have anywhere to go. We don't have money. Everything we have is tied up with him." "We figure it out," I said, "together. We make sure he pays for what he did. To all of us." After they left, taking their confused, frightened children with them, the party slowly resumed. But it was different now. Subdued. People came up to me in small groups, hugging me, patting my arm, whispering words of support and encouragement. "You're so brave. I can't believe he did this to you. You handled that with such grace. You're amazing." But I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel graceful. I felt numb, hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me human, leaving behind only an empty shell. Sarah brought me a glass of water. "Here, sit down. You need to rest." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "No, you're not," she said firmly. "And that's okay. Sit down. Drink this. Breathe." I sat. I drank. I breathed. But I still felt nothing. That night, after everyone had gone home, after Sarah had cleaned up the mess, after the house was silent and dark, I sat alone in the nursery. The crib was already assembled, the white bars gleaming in the soft light from the hallway. The tiny clothes were folded neatly in the drawers. The mobile hung above the crib, little stuffed animals, suspended on delicate strings. I placed my hand on my belly and felt the baby move, a gentle kick, a reminder that despite everything, there was still something good, something pure, something worth fighting for. "It's just you and me now," I whispered into the darkness. And in that moment, I made a promise. To my baby, to myself. That I would never let Marcus hurt us again. That I would fight with everything I had. That I would win. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Hello? Is this the woman from the baby shower?" A voice asked. It was hesitant, shaky. "Lisa." "Yes," I said. "It's me. Can we meet? I need to talk to you. Please. I have questions. I need to understand what happened. I need to know the truth." "Of course," I said. "When and where?" We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown the next day. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Quiet, private. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, sitting at a corner table tucked away from the main area. She looked even more exhausted than she had at the baby shower. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore no makeup. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. There was a cup of coffee in front of her, untouched, steam no longer rising from it. I sat down across from her. Thank you for reaching out. She nodded, her hands wrapped around the cold coffee cup like she needed something to hold on to. I've been thinking about everything. About what you said. About Marcus. About everything. I'm sorry you had to find out that way, I said. Don't be, she said bitterly. I should have known. There were signs, so many signs, but I ignored them. I made excuses. I believed his lies because it was easier than facing the truth. We all did, I said softly. He's very good at what he does. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. It was thick, bulging with papers. I went through his things after the baby shower. He has a home office. He always kept it locked, said it was for work confidentiality. But I broke in. I found these. She slid the folder across the table. I opened it carefully. Inside were more documents, more evidence. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know existed. Emails between Marcus and someone named Brenda. Legal papers, loan documents. I scanned through them, my stomach tightening with each page. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands of dollars moving between accounts. Loans taken out in Lisa's name. Credit cards maxed out, debts piling up. He's been lying to all of us for years, Lisa said, her voice breaking. He took out loans in my name without telling me. He maxed out credit cards I didn't even know existed. He's buried us in debt. I looked up at her. He did the same to me. I found out last month that he refinanced our house without my knowledge. He forged my signature on the documents. Before either of us could say more, the cafe door opened. I looked up and saw Jennifer walk in, holding her baby. She saw us and hesitated, her eyes darting between me and Lisa, uncertainty written all over her face. I'm sorry, she said quietly, approaching our table. I didn't know where else to go. I saw your number in Marcus's phone. I called because I didn't know what to do. Lisa gestured to the empty chair. Sit. Jennifer sat down carefully, adjusting the baby in her arms. The infant was sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. I've been thinking about everything, about what he did to us, to all of us. Us too, I said. We sat there in silence for a moment. 3 women who had been betrayed by the same man. 3 women who had loved him, trusted him, built lives with him. 3 women who now had to face the reality of who he really was. Then Lisa spoke, her voice hard with determination. We need to stop him. He can't get away with this. He can't just destroy our lives and walk away. Agreed, I said. Jennifer nodded. But how? What can we do? We fight back, Lisa said. Together. We pool our resources. We share what we know. We build a case against him. And we make sure he pays for what he did. And that's exactly what we did. Over the next few weeks, the 3 of us met regularly. Sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at Lisa's house, sometimes at my house. We brought our evidence, our documents, our stories. We compared notes. We filled in gaps. We built a timeline of Marcus's lies. We discovered that Marcus had been running a con for years. He had married Lisa legally 12 years ago in Oregon. Then, 8 years ago, he had moved to Washington and started a relationship with Jennifer, establishing a common law marriage. 3 years ago, he had married me in a religious ceremony that wasn't legally binding. He had been maintaining 3 separate households, 3 separate families, juggling lies and schedules like it was a full-time job. He used all of us for different things. Lisa provided stability and respectability. She had a good job as a project manager, a steady income, a nice house. Jennifer provided domestic support. She stayed home with the kids, managed the household, kept everything running smoothly. And me? I'm not sure what I provided. Maybe youth, maybe novelty, maybe just another source of income to drain. He had been siphoning money from all 3 of our accounts, hiding assets, accumulating debt in our names. He had taken out loans, opened credit cards, made purchases, all without our knowledge or consent. We hired a lawyer together. Her name was Margaret. a sharp woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed everything we brought her, spreading the documents across her conference table, organizing them into piles. "This is one of the most elaborate cases of fraud and deception I've seen in my career," she said, during our first official meeting. "And I've been practicing for 30 years, but you have a solid case. He's committed bigamy, fraud, identity theft, financial abuse. The list goes on. Can we get him arrested?" Lisa asked, leaning forward. Margaret hesitated, her pen tapping against her notepad. "It's complicated. Bigamy laws vary by state, and proving financial fraud takes time. The legal system moves slowly, but we can start with civil suits. We can freeze his accounts, force him to pay back what he stole, get restraining orders if necessary." "That's not enough," Lisa said sharply. "He needs to face real consequences. He needs to go to jail." "We'll get there," Margaret assured her. "But we need to be strategic. We need to build an airtight case. We can't rush this." Jennifer shifted the baby in her arms. Little Jake was awake now, making soft cooing sounds. "What about the children? How do we protect them? I don't want them near him. I don't want them to grow up thinking what he did was okay." "Custody will be a separate battle," Margaret said. "But given his behavior, his fraud, his lies, I don't think any judge in their right mind will grant him primary custody of any of the children. We'll file for full custody for each of you." That was some comfort, but it wasn't enough, not nearly enough. As we dug deeper into Marcus's finances, we uncovered more lies, more secrets, more betrayals. He had taken out loans in all our names, tens of thousands of dollars each. He had credit cards we didn't know about, maxed out with purchases for things we never saw. He had even forged my signature on documents to refinance our house, pulling equity out and transferring it to accounts only he could access. Every new discovery felt like a punch to the gut. Every new piece of evidence was another layer of betrayal. How long had he been planning this? How long had he been lying? Had he ever truly loved any of us? Or were we all just pawns in whatever sick game he was playing? One afternoon, I was at home, 7.5 months pregnant now, my belly enormous, my back aching. I was sorting through old paperwork, looking for anything else that might help our case. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, anything. That's when I found it. A life insurance policy. On me. My hands started shaking as I read through the document. Marcus had taken out $1 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago, right after I got pregnant. And he had named himself as the sole beneficiary. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the paper. I called Margaret immediately, my voice trembling. "When was this policy taken out?" she asked, her tone sharp, alert. 6 months ago, I said. "Right after I got pregnant. Right after we found out it was a boy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Margaret spoke again, her voice was careful, measured. "We need to report this to the police. Today. Right now." "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. If he's planning something, if he's trying to, we can't take any chances. This changes everything. $1 million policy, taken out without your knowledge, with him as the sole beneficiary, right after you got pregnant? That's not a coincidence. That's a motive. "No," I said, but my voice was weak. "No, he wouldn't. He's a liar and a cheat. But he's not. He wouldn't hurt me. He wouldn't." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. Because how well did I really know this man? How much of what I thought I knew was real, and how much was just another lie? Margaret insisted I file a police report immediately. I did, though I felt ridiculous doing it. I sat in the cold, sterile police station, my pregnant belly pressing against the edge of the desk, telling a skeptical officer about my husband and the insurance policy and the lies. The officer who took my statement was young, maybe in his late 20s, with a tired expression that said he'd heard it all before. "Has he threatened you?" "Not directly," I admitted. "Has he been violent? Has he ever hit you, pushed you, hurt you physically in any way?" "No." "Has he made any statements about harming you?" No, but then there's not much we can do right now, he said, not unkindly. But we'll keep it on file. If anything else happens, call 911 immediately. Don't hesitate. I left the station feeling defeated, my hands instinctively cradling my belly, protecting the baby from dangers I couldn't see or name. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and groan of the house. I kept thinking about the insurance policy, about Marcus's smug face at the baby shower, about the way he had tried to humiliate me in front of everyone, only to be exposed himself. What else was he capable of? What would he do now that his secrets were out? Would he try to hurt me? Would he try to hurt the baby? I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the baby's movements. Strong kicks now, insistent, like he was trying to tell me something. I won't let him hurt you. I whispered into the darkness. I promise. But I didn't know if that was a promise I could keep. The next morning, Lisa called me, her voice tight with tension. I found something. You need to see this. What? He's been transferring money, large amounts. I found the records in his email. He's been moving money to an offshore account. Thousands and thousands of dollars. My stomach dropped. How much? Over $200,000. Maybe more. I'm still going through everything. I felt dizzy. The room spun. I sat down hard on the couch, my hand pressed to my belly. That's from all of us. That's our money, our savings, our futures. I know, Lisa said, her voice breaking. And there's more. He's been taking out loans using shell companies. Companies that don't exist. He's buried us in debt that we didn't even know about. We could lose everything. Our houses, our savings, our credit, everything. I sat there, trying to process it all, trying to understand the scope of what he had done. This wasn't just lying about having other families. This was systematic financial abuse. This was theft on a massive scale. We need to tell Margaret, I said finally. I already did, Lisa replied. She's filing an emergency motion to freeze all his accounts, every single one. He won't be able to access any of it. Good, I said. But it didn't feel good. It felt like we were drowning, gasping for air, trying to grab onto anything that would keep us afloat. That afternoon, something happened that I should have anticipated, but somehow didn't. Marcus showed up at my house. I was in the kitchen, making tea, trying to calm my nerves. I heard the doorbell ring, and my heart immediately started pounding. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking calm. Too calm. I opened the door, but kept the chain lock on. What do you want? To talk, he said, his voice smooth. Just to talk. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. We have nothing to talk about, I said. Please, he said. For the sake of our baby. Let me explain. Let me make this right. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to believe there was some explanation, some reason that would make sense of all this. He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the living room. Everything was exactly as it had been. The gifts from the baby shower still stacked in the corner. The decorations still hanging on the walls. Nice to see you kept the house clean, he said. What do you want, Marcus? I repeated. He turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not remorse, calculation. I want to make a deal. A deal? Drop the lawsuits. Drop everything. Forget about the investigator, forget about the evidence, forget about all of it. And I'll give you the house. Full custody of the baby. I'll disappear. You'll never have to see me again. I'll sign the divorce papers, I'll walk away, and it'll be like I never existed. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. You think I'm that stupid? I'm trying to make this easy for you, he said. Think about it. No legal battle, no court dates, no dragging this through the system for years. Just a clean break. You get everything you want, and I go away. Easy? I laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. You ruined my life, Marcus. You ruined Lisa's life, Jennifer's life. You stole from us. You lied to us. You manipulated us. You made us believe you loved us when all along we were just, what, sources of income? Game pieces? And now you want me to just let it go? I made mistakes, he said, and his voice was so sincere, so earnest, that for a split second I almost believed him. I know that. I made terrible mistakes. But I'm offering you a way out. I'm giving you the chance to move on with your life, to raise our baby in peace. The only way out is for you to face the consequences of your actions, I said. To pay back what you stole, to take responsibility for what you did. His expression changed then. The mask slipped. The careful, earnest facade cracked. And I saw the real Marcus underneath. Cold, hard, angry. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice low and threatening. You think you know what you're doing, but you don't. You have no idea what I'm capable of. No, I said, my voice steady, despite the fear coursing through me. You made the mistake. You made all the mistakes. And now you're going to pay for them. Now get out of my house. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The door slammed behind him. I locked it immediately, then ran to the kitchen and called Margaret. He was just here, I told her, my voice shaking. He tried to bribe me. He wanted me to drop everything in exchange for the house and full custody. Did you record it? Margaret asked immediately. I cursed under my breath. No, I didn't think to. I should have, but I didn't. It's okay, Margaret said, though I could hear the frustration in her voice. But from now on, don't meet with him alone, ever. If he contacts you again, if he shows up again, call 911 first, then call me. And record everything. Every conversation, every interaction. We need documentation. Okay, I said. I will. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. About the deal he'd offered. About the easy way out. Part of me, a small, tired, pregnant part of me, was tempted. I could take the house. I could raise my baby in peace. I could never see Marcus again. I could pretend he never existed, erase him from my life like a bad dream. But that wasn't justice. That wasn't right. What about Lisa? What about Jennifer? What about all the money he stole? What about the lies, the manipulation, the abuse? No, he needed to face consequences. Real consequences. And I was going to make sure that happened. The next morning, I met with Lisa and Jennifer again. They came to my house this time. Lisa brought coffee. Jennifer brought pastries. We sat around my kitchen table, documents spread out between us, and I told them about Marcus's visit. He came here? Lisa said, her voice rising. He actually had the nerve to come here? He offered me a deal, I explained, wanted me to drop everything. What did you say? Jennifer asked. I told him no. I told him to get out. Lisa nodded approvingly. Good, he's desperate. He knows we have him cornered. What should we do? Jennifer asked, looking between us. What if he tries something? What if he gets violent? I have my kids to think about. What if he comes after me? We'll be careful, I said. We'll document everything. We'll get restraining orders if we need to. But we can't let fear stop us. He's counting on us being too scared to fight back. We can't give him that. Lisa nodded. Agreed. We keep going. We don't back down. A week later, Margaret called with news. We got the motion approved. All of his accounts are frozen. Every single one. He can't access any of them without court approval. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Thank God. But there's something else, Margaret continued. He's filed a countersuit. He's claiming you're defaming him. He wants damages. He's asking for $100,000 for emotional distress and damage to his reputation. I laughed in disbelief. He wants damages? From me? After everything he did? It's a common tactic, Margaret said. It's called a slap suit. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. He's trying to intimidate you, to make you back down. He thinks if he can drag you into an expensive, time-consuming legal battle, you'll give up. It won't work, I said firmly. Good, Margaret said, because we're going to fight this, and we're going to win. But winning wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. The system was slow, complicated, expensive, and I was running out of time. Over the next few weeks, the stress started to take a visible toll on me. I wasn't sleeping more than 2 or 3 hours a night. I couldn't eat. Everything tasted like ash. My blood pressure was rising, climbing higher at every doctor's appointment. My obstetrician, Dr. Chen, was concerned. She looked at my numbers, frowned, and then looked at me with serious eyes. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, higher than I'd like to see at this stage of pregnancy. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't find a way to reduce your stress levels, you could go into premature labor. Or worse, preeclampsia, eclampsia. These are serious conditions that could endanger both you and the baby. I'm trying, I said weakly. Try harder, she said, not unkindly. I know you're going through a difficult time. I know the situation with your husband is complicated, but you need to prioritize your health and your baby's health above everything else. Nothing is worth risking your life or your baby's life. Nothing. I nodded, tears forming in my eyes. I knew she was right, but I couldn't stop. Not now. We were so close. One evening, I was at home alone, reviewing documents for what felt like the 1000th time. Sarah had offered to stay with me, but I had told her I was fine. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. Just a twinge at first. I ignored it, thinking it was just Braxton Hicks contractions. False labor. My body practicing for the real thing. Then another pain. Sharper this time, more intense. I gasped, clutching my belly. My book of documents slid off my lap and hit the floor with a thud. Another pain, and another. Coming faster now. Harder. This wasn't practice, this was real. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah, my voice shaking. I think something's wrong. I think I'm in labor. I'm on my way, she said immediately. Don't move. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She drove me to the hospital, breaking every speed limit, running red lights, her hand tight on mine the whole way. It's going to be okay, she kept saying. You're going to be okay. The baby's going to be okay. But I wasn't sure. I was only 32 weeks. The baby wasn't supposed to come for another month and a half. This was too early. Too soon. At the hospital, they rushed me into a room. Doctors and nurses swarmed around me, hooking me up to monitors, checking my vitals, examining me. My blood pressure was through the roof. The baby's heart rate was irregular, fluctuating between too fast and too slow. The contractions were coming every few minutes now. We need to monitor you closely, Dr. Chen said, her face grave. If things don't stabilize in the next few hours, we may need to induce labor. We may not have a choice. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Sarah held my hand, squeezing tight. It's going to be okay, she whispered. I'm here. You're not alone. But I felt alone. So terribly, utterly alone. Because the person who should have been here, who should have been holding my hand, who should have been telling me everything would be okay, was the person who had caused all of this. This was his fault. All of this was his fault. The stress, the fear, the high blood pressure, the premature labor, he did this. 2 days later, despite the doctor's best efforts to stop it, I went into labor. Real labor. It was too early. The baby wasn't supposed to come yet, but my body couldn't take the stress anymore. It was shutting down, giving up, forcing the baby out because it couldn't sustain the pregnancy any longer. The labor was long and agonizing. 16 hours of contractions, of pain so intense I thought I would black out. 16 hours of fear, wondering if my baby would be okay, if he would survive, if being born this early would cause permanent damage. And through it all, I kept thinking about Marcus, about his lies, about his betrayal, about the fact that he had done this to me, to our baby, and he didn't even care. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was actually just over 16 hours, I heard the sound I had been desperately waiting for. A cry, small, weak, but unmistakable, my baby's cry. The doctor placed him on my chest, and I looked down at this tiny, fragile human I had created. He was so small. His skin was wrinkled and red, his eyes were closed, his fists were clenched tight. But he was breathing. He was alive. He's healthy. Dr. Chen said, her voice filled with relief. A little underweight at 4 pounds, 3 ounces but healthy. His lungs are strong, all his vitals are good. He's a fighter. I sobbed, holding him close, feeling his tiny body against mine. His heartbeat, his breath, his life. Hi, baby, I whispered through my tears. I'm your mom, and I love you so much. Sarah was crying too, standing beside the bed, her hand on my shoulder. He's beautiful. He's absolutely perfect. I named him Daniel, after my father, who had passed away when I was in college. A man who had shown me what integrity looked like, what honesty looked like, what real love looked like. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or fear or numbness. I felt love. Pure, overwhelming, all-consuming love. This was my son. Mine. And I would do anything, sacrifice anything, fight anyone to protect him. Marcus tried to visit the hospital. He showed up the next day, demanding to see me and the baby. But Sarah had alerted security, and they turned him away. Margaret filed an emergency restraining order that same day. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me or Daniel. If he violated it, he would be arrested immediately. When I finally brought Daniel home 5 days later, the house felt different. It wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours, mine and Daniel's. A family of 2. Small, but complete. Lisa and Jennifer came to visit, bringing gifts and food and, most importantly, support. Lisa had brought a handmade baby blanket. Jennifer had brought diapers and wipes and all the practical things new mothers need. How are you feeling? Lisa asked, looking at me with concern. Tired, I admitted, bouncing Daniel gently in my arms. But happy. Really happy. Jennifer looked at Daniel, her expression soft. He's perfect. Absolutely perfect. He is, I agreed. We sat in silence for a moment, just watching Daniel sleep in his bassinet, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. We're going to win this, Lisa said quietly, her voice filled with determination. For him, for all our kids. We're going to make sure Marcus pays for what he did. We will, I agreed. We will. And I believed it, because I wasn't fighting just for me anymore. I was fighting for Daniel, for his future, for his safety, for his right to grow up without being poisoned by his father's lies. And I would never, ever stop fighting. The weeks that followed were a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, feeding schedules, and doctor's appointments. Daniel was thriving, gaining weight, growing stronger every day. But the legal battle was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Margaret called me 2 weeks after I brought Daniel home. We have a hearing scheduled, she said, her tone serious. Marcus is contesting the restraining order. He's also demanding paternity testing and visitation rights. He claims he has a legal right to see his son. My blood ran cold. My grip tightened on the phone. He can't be serious. After everything he's done? He is serious. And unfortunately, under the law, he does have certain rights. He can request paternity testing, and if it confirms he's the father, which it will, he can petition for visitation. But he's dangerous, I said, my voice rising. He took out a life insurance policy on me. He's been stealing from me. He's threatened me. I know, Margaret interrupted gently. And we're going to present all of that evidence to the judge. But you need to prepare yourself. This hearing is going to be difficult. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. She was right. It was about to get much, much worse. I'm now at around 38,000 characters. I'll continue expanding with even more detail, more scenes, more emotional depth to reach at least 60,000 characters. Continuing, the hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of waiting, of anxiety, of sleepless nights, not just because of the baby, but because of the fear of what was coming. During those 3 weeks, Margaret advised me to document everything. Every expense related to Daniel. Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every feeding, every doctor's appointment, every single moment I spent caring for my son. If Marcus wants to claim parental rights, we need to show that he's been completely absent, Margaret explained during one of our meetings. We need to demonstrate that you've been the sole caregiver. that he's provided no support, no assistance, no involvement whatsoever. I kept a detailed log: times, dates, activities. 2 a.m. Daniel woke up crying, changed diaper, fed for 30 minutes, rocked back to sleep. 5:30 a.m. Daniel woke up again, fed, burped, changed. 8 a.m. Took Daniel to pediatrician for weight check. On and on and on. Lisa and Jennifer were dealing with their own battles. Lisa had filed for full custody of Tyler and Emma, and Marcus was fighting her every step of the way. He claimed he was a devoted father, that Lisa was trying to turn the children against him, that he deserved equal parenting time. Jennifer was struggling even more. She was a stay-at-home mom with 3 young children, no income of her own, and no savings. Everything she had was tied to Marcus. Now that his accounts were frozen, she couldn't access any money. She could barely afford groceries, let alone rent and utilities. "I'm going to lose the house," she told us during one of our meetings at the cafe. Mason and Olivia were coloring at the table. Baby Jake was sleeping in his carrier, and Jennifer looked like she was barely holding it together. "I can't make next month's rent. I don't have anything. I don't even have family nearby who can help." "We'll figure something out," Lisa said, firmly. She had already offered to pay for Jennifer's lawyer, drawing from her own savings. "You're not going through this alone." "None of us are," I added. "We're in this together." But the truth was, we were all drowning. Marcus had left us with mountains of debt, emotional trauma, financial ruin, and 3 households of children to care for. And he was still trying to control us, still trying to manipulate the situation to his advantage. A few days before the hearing, I received a text from an unknown number. My hands immediately started shaking when I read it. "You're making a mistake. Drop the case, or you'll regret it. I'll make sure you lose everything. The house, the baby, everything. Think about what's best for Daniel." I knew it was Marcus. It had to be. The threatening tone, the manipulation, the reference to Daniel. I immediately forwarded the message to Margaret and took screenshots. "This is harassment," Margaret said when she called me back. "This is witness intimidation. This is exactly what we need. We can use this in court." "He's trying to scare me," I said, my voice shaking. "I know," Margaret replied, "but don't let him. We're going to use this against him. This shows a pattern of controlling behavior. This helps our case." But knowing it helped our case didn't make me feel any less terrified. The day of the hearing arrived. Sarah stayed with Daniel while I went to the courthouse. Lisa and Jennifer came with me for moral support, sitting in the gallery behind me. The courthouse was cold and sterile, with high ceilings and hard wooden benches. Everything echoed. Every footstep, every whisper, every shuffle of papers. Marcus was already there when we arrived, sitting at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer. A slick-looking man in an expensive suit with slicked-back hair and a practiced smile. Marcus looked calm, too calm. He wore a suit and tie, his hair neatly combed, his expression neutral. He looked like a respectable businessman, not a con artist and fraudster. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I saw him smile, not a friendly smile. A cold, calculating smile that said he thought he was going to win. I felt a wave of rage wash over me. How dare he sit there looking so calm, so composed, so self-assured after everything he had done? Margaret leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Don't react. Stay calm. Don't let him get to you. That's what he wants. He wants you to look emotional, unstable, irrational. Don't give him that satisfaction." I took a deep breath and nodded, forcing my expression to remain neutral. The judge entered, and we all stood. Judge Martinez was a stern-looking woman in her 60s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. The hearing began. Marcus's lawyer spoke first, and I had to grip the edge of the table to keep from shouting. "Your Honor, my client is a devoted father who has been unfairly and unjustly shut out of his child's life," the lawyer said, his voice smooth and practiced. "He has every legal right to establish paternity and seek appropriate custody arrangements. The restraining order currently in place is punitive and vindictive, based on unsubstantiated claims and emotional accusations. My client has done nothing to warrant being kept away from his newborn son. He simply wishes to be a father, to have a relationship with his child, which is his fundamental right. I wanted to scream. Unsubstantiated claims, emotional accusations. Then it was Margaret's turn. She stood, her movements precise and controlled, and addressed the judge. Your Honor, the restraining order was issued because Mr. Marcus Hayes poses a credible and documented threat to my client's safety and well-being. He has been harassing her, stealing from her, manipulating her, and defrauding her for years. We have extensively documented evidence of financial fraud, identity theft, forgery, and emotional abuse. Margaret began presenting the evidence. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers. Text messages showing lies and manipulation. The life insurance policy taken out without my knowledge. The threatening text message from just days ago. Copies of emails, credit card statements, loan documents, everything organized, labeled, color-coded. The judge reviewed everything carefully, her expression inscrutable. Marcus's lawyer tried to dismiss it. These are civil matters, Your Honor. Financial disputes. They have no bearing on my client's fundamental right to see his child. Plenty of couples have financial disagreements during divorce proceedings. That doesn't make someone an unfit parent. They have every bearing, Margaret countered sharply. A man who steals from the mother of his child, who lies to her systematically for years, who forges her signature on legal documents, who manipulates and controls her, who has multiple families he's been deceiving simultaneously, who takes out a life insurance policy on a pregnant woman without her knowledge. That man is absolutely unfit to be a parent. That man has demonstrated a complete lack of integrity, honesty, and basic human decency. The judge looked at Marcus. Mr. Hayes, do you have anything to say for yourself? Marcus stood slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was humble, apologetic, sincere. It was a masterful performance. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I freely admit that. I hurt people I care about. I made terrible choices, but I love my son. From the moment I knew he existed, I loved him. I want to be part of his life. I want to be his father. I want to be there for him, to support him, to watch him grow. I'm asking for a chance, just a chance to prove that I can be the father he deserves. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Every word out of his mouth was a lie, and he delivered it so convincingly that I could see the judge's expression soften slightly. The judge was silent for a long moment, reviewing the documents in front of her, weighing the evidence, considering both arguments. Finally, she spoke. I'm going to order a paternity test. Once paternity is established, we'll revisit custody arrangements and visitation rights. In the meantime, the restraining order will remain in place. Mr. Hayes will have no contact with the child or the mother until we can establish paternity and evaluate the full scope of the situation. We'll reconvene in 3 weeks. I felt a small sense of relief. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was something. The restraining order would stay in place, at least for now. As we left the courthouse, Marcus tried to approach me, but Margaret stepped between us immediately. You're violating the restraining order by even being this close, she said sharply. Leave now, or I'll call the police. He glared at her, then at me, then walked away without a word. Lisa put her arm around me as we walked to the parking lot. You okay? I will be, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. The paternity test was scheduled for the following week. I brought Daniel to the clinic, my stomach in knots the entire drive. Marcus was already there, waiting in the reception area. When he saw me walk in with Daniel, something flickered in his eyes. Emotion. Real emotion. For just a moment, he looked like he might cry. Can I just hold him for a minute? He asked, his voice breaking. No, I said firmly. You can't. The test itself was quick and painless. A simple cheek swab for Daniel, who barely fussed. A cheek swab for Marcus. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes. Results will take about a week, the technician said. We'll send them directly to both attorneys. During that week, I barely slept. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios. Marcus being granted joint custody, having to hand my baby over to him for visits, watching my son grow up confused, manipulated, poisoned by his father's lies. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. When the results finally came, Margaret called me immediately. "He's the father," she said. "The test confirms Marcus is Daniel's biological father." I felt my heart sink even though I had known this would be the result. "So what happens now?" "We go back to court," Margaret said. "But don't worry. We have a strong case. We have evidence of his fraud, his manipulation, his threats. He's not going to get custody. I won't let that happen." "But what if—" I started. "Trust me," Margaret said firmly. "I've been doing this for 30 years. I know how these cases work. He's not going to get custody. At best, he'll get supervised visitation, and even that's not guaranteed given everything he's done." And the next hearing was even more intense than the first. Both sides presented their cases. Marcus's lawyer argued for joint custody, painting Marcus as a reformed man who had made mistakes but was committed to being a good father. Margaret presented our evidence again, but this time with more. The threatening texts, the financial abuse, the lies to multiple families, the life insurance policy, testimonies from Lisa and Jennifer about their experiences with Marcus, character witnesses who spoke about my character, my devotion to Daniel, my fitness as a mother. The judge listened to everything, her expression grave. When it was time for her decision, the courtroom fell silent. You could hear people breathing. Given the extensively documented history of financial abuse, fraud, harassment, manipulation, and threatening behavior, Judge Martinez said, her voice firm and clear, "I am granting sole legal and physical custody to the mother. Mr. Hayes will be allowed supervised visitation only, pending completion of a psychological evaluation and a parenting class. Visitation will be limited to 2 hours per week at a supervised visitation center, with all costs to be borne by Mr. Hayes. This order will remain in effect until Mr. Hayes can demonstrate to the court's satisfaction that he has addressed his behavioral issues and poses no threat to the child or the mother." I wanted to cry with relief. Sole custody, supervised visitation only. He couldn't take Daniel from me. But Marcus's reaction was explosive. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is bullshit," he shouted, his face red with rage. "This is completely unfair. I have rights. I'm his father." "Mr. Hayes, sit down immediately," the judge ordered, her voice sharp. But Marcus didn't sit. He turned to me, pointing his finger, his face twisted with fury. "You think you've won? You haven't. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I'll make your life hell. I'll fight this. I'll appeal. I'll take this as far as I need to. You'll never be free of me. Never." "Mr. Hayes, you're in contempt of court," Judge Martinez said, her voice rising. "Bailiff, remove him from my courtroom immediately." 2 bailiffs moved quickly, grabbing Marcus by the arms. He struggled against them, still shouting, still threatening, as they dragged him out of the courtroom. I sat there, trembling, my hands shaking so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. Margaret put her hand on my shoulder. "It's over. You won. You got everything we asked for. Sole custody. He can't hurt you or Daniel anymore." But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I had just poked a sleeping bear. And now it was awake and furious and looking for revenge. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Daniel's soft breathing in the bassinet beside me. I thought about everything we'd been through, the lies, the betrayal, the fear, the legal battles, and I wondered if it would ever truly be over, or if Marcus would keep fighting, keep threatening, keep trying to control our lives from a distance. A few days later, Lisa called me, her voice urgent. "He's gone." "What?" "Marcus. He's gone. He disappeared. His lawyer said he hasn't been answering calls for 3 days. His apartment is empty. All his stuff is gone." I felt a chill run down my spine, cold and sharp. "Where did he go?" "Nobody knows. But I have a bad feeling about this." So did I. Because a man like Marcus doesn't just disappear. He doesn't just give up and walk away. He plans. He schemes. He waits for the right moment to strike. Margaret tried to track him down, working with investigators, checking credit cards, phone records, anything that might give us a clue. But it was like he had vanished into thin air. No phone calls, no emails, no credit card activity, no activity on his bank accounts, though they were still frozen. No sign of him anywhere. "He's running," Margaret said during one of our phone calls. "He knows he's cornered. He knows the fraud charges are coming. He knows he's facing serious legal consequences. So he's running, trying to disappear before the system catches up with him." "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means we keep moving forward. We freeze whatever remaining assets we can find. We pursue the fraud charges in absentia if necessary. We make sure that when he does resurface, and he will eventually, he faces the full consequences of his actions." But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that Marcus was out there somewhere, planning something, waiting for the right moment, and I had no idea what he was capable of when he was desperate. A week later, I received a letter in the mail, no return address, just my name, handwritten on the envelope in Marcus's distinctive scrawl. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a short message, written in the same handwriting. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. Not even close. I'll get what's mine, one way or another, and you'll pay for what you've done. You and that baby. You'll both pay." I dropped the letter like it had burned me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Daniel started crying in his bassinet, as if sensing my fear. I picked him up, holding him close, my whole body trembling. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, though I didn't know if I was trying to convince him or myself. "I won't let him hurt you. I promise. I won't let him hurt you." But I didn't know if that was a promise I could keep, because Marcus was out there somewhere, and he was coming for us. I immediately called the police, then Margaret. The police took the letter as evidence and increased patrols in my neighborhood. Margaret filed additional motions with the court, but I knew it wasn't enough. Restraining orders and police patrols couldn't stop someone who was truly determined, someone who had nothing left to lose. That week was the worst of my life. Worse than the baby shower revelation. Worse than the premature labor. Worse than anything. I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every car that drove past. Every creak of the floorboards. Every rustle of leaves outside. I kept Daniel's bassinet right next to my bed so I could hear every breath he took. I installed new locks on all the doors. I bought a security camera for the front porch. I asked Sarah to stay with me most nights. "You're not going through this alone," Sarah said firmly, her overnight bag in hand. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." But even with Sarah there, even with the new locks and the security camera and the police patrols, I didn't feel safe. A few days later, Lisa called me again. "I found something," she said, her voice tense. I was going through more of his old emails. He's been communicating with someone, a woman named Brenda. I don't know who she is, but they were talking about money. A lot of money. Offshore accounts, shell companies. She was helping him. "Send everything to Margaret," I said immediately. I already did. Margaret called me an hour later. "This is significant, very significant. It looks like Marcus has been working with an accomplice. Someone who helped him hide the money, set up the fraudulent accounts, create the shell companies. Her name is Brenda Lawson. She's a financial consultant. She knew exactly what she was doing." "So she's part of this?" I asked. "Yes. And we're going to pursue charges against her too. But more importantly, she might know where Marcus is. She might be our link to finding him." Over the next few days, Margaret and her team worked tirelessly to trace the emails, to identify this Brenda person, to build a case against her. They finally tracked her down. She lived 2 towns over, worked at a financial consulting firm, and had no idea that her world was about to implode. Margaret arranged a meeting with her, and I insisted on being there. I needed to see her face. I needed to hear what she had to say. We met at Margaret's office. Brenda arrived looking professional and polished, wearing a tailored suit and carrying a leather briefcase. She was in her early 40s, with sharp features and intelligent eyes. She sat across from us in the conference room, her arms crossed defensively. "I didn't know," she said immediately, before Margaret could even begin. "I swear to God, I didn't know he was married. I didn't know about any of this. He told me he was single. He said we were in a relationship." "Did you help him hide money?" Margaret asked directly. Brenda hesitated, her eyes darting between us. "Yes, but I thought it was for his business. He said he was protecting his assets from a potential lawsuit. He said it was all legitimate, all legal. He showed me documentation. It all looked proper." "He was lying," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "He was stealing from me, from all of us. And you helped him do it." Brenda looked at me, and I saw her expression soften, saw guilt flicker in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I truly am. I didn't know. If I had known, I never would have helped him. I never would have gotten involved." "Where is he?" Margaret asked, leaning forward. "Do you know where he went?" "I don't know," Brenda said. "He stopped contacting me about 3 weeks ago. Just vanished. I tried calling, texting, emailing. Nothing. No response." "Did he ever mention having a backup plan?" Margaret pressed. "A place to go if things went wrong?" Brenda thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Once. Just once. He mentioned something about having a place. Somewhere no one could find him. He said it like a joke, like he was being paranoid. But now I don't think it was a joke." "Where?" I demanded. "Where would he go?" "I don't know," Brenda said, shaking her head. "He never told me specifics. Just that he had a backup plan. That's all." Margaret leaned forward, her expression serious. "If you want to avoid criminal charges, you'll cooperate with us, fully, completely. You'll provide every piece of information you have. Every email, every document, every conversation, everything." Brenda nodded quickly. "I will. I'll tell you everything I know. I'll provide whatever you need. I don't want to go to jail. Please." Over the next few days, Brenda provided detailed information about the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the money Marcus had hidden. It was staggering. Over $500,000, stolen from all of us over the years. Margaret filed motions to seize those accounts too. But it was a slow process, complicated by international banking laws and jurisdiction issues. In the meantime, I was still living in fear, still jumping at every sound, still holding Daniel close, terrified that Marcus would somehow find a way to hurt us. Then, one night, something happened that pushed me over the edge. I was feeding Daniel, sitting in the rocking chair in his nursery, when I heard a noise outside. Footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate footsteps. I froze, my heart stopping. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. I quickly but quietly placed Daniel in his crib and grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I called 911, whispering into the phone. "Someone's outside my house. I think someone's trying to get in." The dispatcher stayed on the line, asking me questions, keeping me calm, while police were dispatched to my address. The footsteps started again. Slower now, moving across the porch toward the window. I heard Sarah wake up in the guest room. "What's going on?" she called out. "Stay there," I whispered urgently. "Someone's outside." Sarah came out of the guest room with a baseball bat in her hands. She was prepared. She positioned herself at the top of the stairs, ready. The footsteps stopped again. Then silence. Complete, terrible silence. I held my breath, straining to hear anything. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure whoever was outside could hear it. Then, finally, I heard sirens in the distance, getting closer. The police were coming. And suddenly, running footsteps. Someone running away from the house, fast. Then a knock on the door, a loud, official knock. "Police, open up." I exhaled in relief, my legs almost giving out beneath me. Sarah ran down to open the door. 2 police officers stood there, flashlights in hand, looking alert and professional. "We checked the perimeter," one of them said, a tall black officer with kind eyes. "There's no one here now, but we did find this on your porch." He held up a small envelope, another letter. I took it with trembling hands, dreading what I would find inside. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sentence, written in Marcus's handwriting. I'm watching, always watching. The police took the letter as evidence. They dusted for fingerprints on the porch. They checked the security camera footage, but whoever it was had avoided the camera's angle, staying just out of view. They increased patrols even more, promising to drive by every hour throughout the night. But I knew it wasn't enough. Marcus was out there. He was watching us, and he was playing a sick, twisted game. The next day, Margaret called me with news that changed everything. We found him. My breath caught in my throat. Where? He's been staying at a motel about 2 towns over. The police are on their way to pick him up right now. They have a warrant for his arrest. I felt a wave of relief so strong I nearly collapsed. Is it really over? Is it really going to end? We're close, Margaret said. Very close. An hour later, Margaret called again. But this time, her voice was different, frustrated, angry. He's gone. What? By the time the police got there, he had already checked out. 10 minutes. We missed him by 10 minutes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to curl up in a ball and cry. He's playing with us, I said, my voice hollow. He knew we were coming. Somehow, he knew. We'll find him again, Margaret said. But even she sounded unsure now. He's running out of options. He's running out of places to hide. But I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. That night, I sat in the nursery, watching Daniel sleep, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Marcus control my life anymore. I wasn't going to live in fear, jumping at every shadow, terrified of what might happen next. I was going to fight back, publicly, loudly. I was going to take away his power by exposing him to the world. The next morning, I called Margaret with my plan. I want to go public, I said. I want to tell our story, all of it. I want everyone to know what he did. Margaret hesitated. Are you sure? Once you go public, there's no taking it back. Your life will be under scrutiny. People will ask questions. Reporters will call. It will be difficult. I'm sure, I said firmly. He's counting on us staying quiet. He's counting on shame and fear keeping us silent. We need to take that power away from him. Lisa and Jennifer immediately agreed to join me when I called them. We wrote a detailed account of everything Marcus had done. The lies, the manipulation, the fraud, the multiple families, the threats, everything. We didn't hold back. We didn't soften the truth. We laid it all out clearly and honestly. We posted it on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We tagged local news stations. We emailed it to journalists. We made sure it was out there, public and permanent. And within hours, it went viral. People were outraged. They shared our story, commented their support, demanded justice. The post was shared thousands of times, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Local news outlets picked it up. We were contacted for interviews. We appeared on the evening news, sitting together, telling our story. And Marcus's face was plastered everywhere, on television, on social media, in newspapers. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he had done. He couldn't hide anymore. His face was too recognizable. His story too public. 3 days later, the police found him. He had been staying with a friend in another state, trying to lay low. But someone recognized him from the news coverage and called the police. He was arrested and extradited back to our state to face charges. When I heard the news, I cried. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, tears of exhaustion, tears of finally being able to breathe. Is it over? I asked Margaret when she called to tell me. Not completely, she said. There's still the trial, still the legal process. But yes, the worst is over. He's in custody. He can't hurt you anymore. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Daniel woke up twice to feed, but other than that, I slept. Real, deep, dreamless sleep. The trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, I focused on healing, on being a mother, on rebuilding my life. I spent time with Daniel, watching him grow and change every day. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during the chaos. I started therapy with Dr. Patel, working through the trauma, the betrayal, the fear. And slowly, so slowly, I began to feel like myself again. Lisa, Jennifer, and I stayed close. We had formed a bond that went beyond shared trauma. We had become real friends, sisters in a way. We supported each other, celebrated small victories together, and reminded each other that we were survivors. And we were going to make sure Marcus paid for what he did. Not just for us, but for every woman who had ever been manipulated, lied to, or betrayed. Because justice wasn't just about winning in court. It was about reclaiming our lives, our power, our futures. And that's exactly what we were going to do.